Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, David. How you doing this morning?
I'm good, buddy. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. I got a new cup today. It's not my normal 49er cup. My custom 49er cup for my cool channel here. Uh, it's seen better days, and I'm looking forward to presenting my new favorite 49er YouTube cup when it's done in we'll just say the building, the construction process. The designs haven't completely been finalized. So, yeah, shout out to Tony. She makes great cups and she makes cool designs. And yeah, I love my cups. And yeah, again, that other one, well, I will see it in the great cup heaven, right? Up there in the sky where, all good cups of coffee, or glasses. Or have you ever had like a beer glass or, maybe a soda glass or something like that? Like that's your glass, right?
Oh yeah.
Or it's just like when you lose it, it's almost like you lost a portion of you, if that makes sense. But then when you get that new cup and it's warmed up to you or glass, and you're used to it, you know, it's not the same, but it's good. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Tony's a big Peanuts fan. She likes Charlie Brown, so she's got a couple of those. And yeah. So today, thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. We're going to be talking a little bit about 49ers, and we're going to talk a little bit about the kickoff rule. So what I did is I have cropped a picture, and I used it from MSN. So shout out to MSN. They put together the positions and the placements of the players where they're going to be at on the field. So David, I'd like to show you that for a few minutes, and we're going to go into that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about where everything's going to seem to have to go, where they're going to have to go, and what they're going to have to do on the kickoff. So here we go. All right. So from this point of view, this is where your kicker is going to be back there at the 30. The new deal is your players aren't lining up where your kicker's at. They're going to line up on the other side of the 50. There's going to be a cushion between your players and the opposing team. Nobody can move. And we'll get into all the details. But when the kicker kicks the ball, the returners in the back, the returners can move before the ball is kicked. But the return, and we'll get into that so I can be corrected. When the kick happens, these two guys, once these two guys move, that's when everything else can happen. So, kickoff location. The kicking team will kick off from its own 35-yard line. 10 members of the kicking team will line up on the receiving team's 40-yard line, 25 yards in front of their kicker. A minimum of 9 members of the receiving team will line up between their own 30 and 35-yard line. So they don't always have to line up on the line right here. A minimum of 9 players. Okay, so approximately 5 to 10 yards in front of kicking team players. Now the kickoff features new alignments for both kicking and receiving teams. A landing zone exists between the receiving team's goal line. So this is your landing zone, where it's between the red zone, comes up to about the 15. Exists between the receiving team's goal line and its 20-yard line. If the ball lands in this sector, action is prompted. Kickoffs will remain at the 35-yard line, but the remaining 10 players on the kicking unit will line up the opposing team's 40-yard line. So again, the players are over here at the 40. Nobody can move. The receiving team lines up at least 7 players in the setup zone, a 5-yard area between their own 35-yard and 30-yard line. So this is where on the other side of the field, when you are your receiving team, you don't have to line everybody up on the line. You can have a couple guys in the safe zone, I guess you want to say it, or the white zone right here, where you can have potential guys in between. When these guys take off running, you have a couple guys back here that are a little bit, they could be blockers. It could happen. The receiving team's player in the setup zone also cannot move until the kick has hit the ground, or a player in the landing zone or the end zone. So these players, nobody can move again. Nobody can move until the ball has been kicked. Kickoff scenarios. Kickoffs that hit the landing zone must be returned. Kickoffs that hit the landing zone and then go into the end zone must be returned or downed by the receiving team. If downed, the receiving team gets the ball on its own 20-yard line. Kickoffs that go into the end zone and stay inbounds are downed. Kickoffs that go out of the back of the end zone would also be a touchback. The receiving team would get it at the 30-yard line. David, do you like this new setup?
The one thing I don't like was the last part of it. So if we kick it out the back of the end zone, they're at the 30. It used to be at the 20, right? Long time ago. Then they moved it up to the 25. Now they're up at the 30. It's almost like, why don't you guys just start, just say, okay, no kickoff. They get the ball at the 30 at the 25-yard line. Why? I mean, but this actually gives the NFL coaches who are intelligent a chance to do something, right? Those two returners, we're going to see a drastic change in who's returning those kicks. Right now, it's wide receivers, defensive backs, speedy guys, right?
Yeah.
We're going to see guys like running backs, Deebo Samuel, for example. We're going to see guys that can break tackles, get yards after the catch. Those guys are going to become those two guys that are receiving the kick, because all they got to do is break a tackle or two, because most of the teams are right there. They're not spread out all over the field anymore. They're all right there. So they break through that line. The only person that they have to make miss is the kicker, and they're getting a touchdown, right?
And I'm interested in that because it says here, after the ball is kicked, the kicker cannot cross the 50-yard line. So after the ball is kicked, of course, the kicker's not going to cross the yard anyways, but until the ball is kicked. But what's that mean? What, the kicker can't go past the 50 at all? He has to remain at the 50.
That's exactly what that means. So he's pretty much like the safety,
But he can't move up. He can't move up like a goalie, basically. The goalie in, like hockey and soccer, they can't be over the midfield.
Yep. That's what it says. So they're not going to be able to go past the 50. So the kicker is just going to have to hang out and watch everything happen from far away. Right. But
most of the time, most kickers stay back anyways. You don't want your kicker, tackling or getting hurt. They're supposed to be someone in the backfield, and usually it is the kicker. But we've had kickers like Pat McAfee, who's kicker / punter really. Then we've had like our own guy, shout out Jose Cortez, who would want to go out and tackle. He almost wanted to tackle more than he wanted to kick the ball. And so
Andy Lee too. He would run up and friggin' throw someone 10 yards out of bounds if you give him the chance,
So this is for 1 year. It's an experimental thing, but we kind of know how that works out. So it's supposed to be for player safety. It looks like it could be. And like you're saying too, the different players that they put in the backfield for returners, you could put potentially like CMC back there as a returner. And then who else would you like to put back there as a returner? Who's dangerous on the 49ers if they got the ball in their hand in an open field?
Tebow.
You'd like you? So would you put Debo back there? I mean, at this point, it doesn't seem like he's going
Dude's
to get
making
hurt.
28 million, right?
Uh huh.
So right now, my sympathy, it isn't really with him right now. He's making a lot of money. So, and he didn't get, even over 1,000 yards receiving. He got over 1,000 yards, from scrimmage. I'll give him credit, but he's still not that player he was in his contract year, right? Or he hasn't
Mm-hmm.
produced like he has, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's give him a chance to do something. Put him back there to receive a kick. Debo breaks a tackle or two. We've seen how good in open space he is, but he breaks the tackle. He gets through that line. Who's going to stop him? The punter or the kicker? And the kicker is they're going to have to be real careful with this guy because Debo will run that kicker over, So honestly, I did a major injury happen to a kicker last year? Did something happen? I remember there were a couple games where someone lost like their punter or their kicker, and they were kind of, they had the other guy trying to do his job, and it didn't really work out, right? But
Yeah.
I don't think there was a major, run on kickers, right? I don't think there was a big pile of kickers being injured from kickoff returns. So the fact that he can't go past the 50-yard line is kind of, doesn't make much sense, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like an unwritten rule, and that's where I'm kind of like, you know what I mean? Because most of the time the kickers stay back, anyways, unless we have someone who's a savage, like we just named off a couple of those players, Andy Lee or Jose Cortez or Pat McAfee, who wanted to try to attempt an onside kick. And that's the other thing that I am looking at. It doesn't seem like there's even a way for an onside kick to happen, does it?
There's really the onside kick. It's now what in the fourth quarter you're allowed to do it, and you have to announce it to the other team. So there's no surprise onside kick anymore. It's that's disappointing too because there were some guys would just do it out of nowhere. In the first quarter they'd just line up like they were going to kick off. They'd run up and surprise. That factor is now, I believe that factor has now been removed from the game. So it's kind of, I don't, I don't know why they did the onside kick rule because, again, if it's about player safety, guys are really close. They're not hitting each other hard, and they're like going for the ball, but I never saw a guy with a season-ending injury trying to recover an onside kick. Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? It's like
That's
so.
funny.
It's what was the hip drop tackle rule, but that also kind of
And
affects special teams because the guys that tackle, so some of them use it. It's not necessarily used on every play. Um, and it's like, yeah, there we go. There we go right there. And announced. So it'll be like an offensive lineman checking in to be an eligible receiver. The ref will be like, these guys are going for an onside kick. The crowd's like, well, no, really? Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Terradome actually brought up a guy, Derrick Henry. So a guy like that
yeah.
being back there to receive the kick. We're going to see kick returners like that, guys that are just known to run through people because there's not going to be much between them and the touchdown, right?
Yeah, once you give it to a certain player, like who can tackle him. And I'd be surprised to see the ball. Not surprised. I would be really not. Okay, if you get somebody like Kittle, the ball in his hands, who can really tackle him, right? It's going to take a lot to take somebody down like that. The Baltimore tight end from, from Baltimore, what is his, Mark Andrews, I think his name. Is it Mark Andrews or I think his last name is Andrews, but the tight end from Baltimore who got hurt, and he got hurt because of the hip drop tackle. He, before it was a rule, he was going to be really hard to take down. The tight end for the Lions. There's a lot of good players out there, and it's just going to make it harder for people to tackle them. So if these guys can get a little wiggle, maybe that's where you'll still see kickoffs, scored for touchdowns. But it looks like at this point they're going to just try to kick the ball into the end zone. Just kick the ball into the end zone. If you don't have a kicker who can get into the end zone, then what are you doing?
Well, are they going to try like kicking it to the corners right in front of the end zone? It'll be like a called play by the special teams coach where they kick it to the corner and everybody just kind of goes that way in layers. The guys that are closest are layer 1. The guys that come up behind them are layer 2. I mean, that's literally how you're going to defeat someone like Debo, CMC, Derrick Henry, like from, making a big return, right? Either that or you're going to have a single layer for them to get through, and they're going to be able to do it. It's going to happen.
Well, if they do the touchbacks, the ball gets put. Okay, so what's new? The ball we placed at the 35-yard line. That's where the kickoff's at again.
Tommy's saying if you kick into the end zone, it starts at the 35. Is it the 30 or 35?
That's what I was looking at. I think it's the 30. I think we kick off. Okay. I think the kicker kicks off at the 35-yard line. If it goes into the end zone, I believe it's the 30. Wait. The receiving team takes over at the 35. Year. There are no fair catches. There are no fair catches. If the ball fails to make it to the landing zone, the receiving team takes over at its own 40-yard line. Wow. If the ball flies into the end zone, okay, the receiving team, okay, so Tommy's correct. It's 35-yard line. There's no fair catches.
Are you kidding me?
Ball fails to make it to the landing zone. So if it doesn't go to the pink part on the screen, let's go back to the.
Wow. So now you're 15 yards away.
If it doesn't make it to the landing zone,
side of the field. Oh my goodness.
There's the space from the receiving team's 20-yard line to the goal line is the landing zone. No one from the kicking team can cross the 40 until the ball either lands or is fielded there. Once again, there are no fair catches if the ball fails to make it to the landing zone. The receiving team takes it at its own 40-yard line. So if they just kick it over these players and it bounces between the 30-yard line and the 20, like a weird kick over the line, basically like a pooch kick or whatnot. So if you don't have a decent kicker who can kick from the 35-yard line to the end zone, but you're not trying to kick into the end zone, you're trying to Jake Moody it, and you're trying to put it right there on like the 5 or the 2. Now, if it rolls into the end zone, that's what I'm interested in. If the ball flies into the end zone, the receiving team takes it at 35 yards. But what if it was to roll into the end zone? It hits the landing zone on the fly, then rolls into the end zone. It's downed. The receiving team takes over at its 20. So if the ball hits the pink in the landing zone and rolls into the end zone, that's your best options. That's what the kickoff team wants to do, is kick the ball and not have the team return it. They want the other team to let it bounce and roll out of the end zone, because then they'll start at the 20.
Ooh, Ty Austin.
We're bringing.
He says Ayuk is not returning kicks. Hey, we've seen it before. We've seen him and Debo. But when there were, I can't remember. Was it just we didn't have anybody? That might have been the case.
No, I believe he was in a doghouse, and he tried that helped get him out of the doghouse. If I'm correct, I could be wrong, but I think
Yes.
maybe we didn't have anybody either, and I think he volunteered to do it too. I think that was something really cool about it. So we got Levi here. He's going to be coming on talking with us, and yeah, the new rules for kickoff have definitely changed. This again is your ordinary kickoff formations. We have your kicker kicking off once again at 35. And oh boy, you almost want to see a return at this point, don't you?
Well, at this time, that makes the like the guys coming up in the draft that can break one tackle and run. It makes
Yeah.
them a little more sought after now, right?
Yeah. It definitely does. Yeah.
Wow.
So again, if you're a kicker, you don't want to kick too short, because if you just kick it over the line, then it's going to go right to the 40. You don't want to kick the ball out of the out of bounds anyways. Same thing, it would go to the 40. But that's where it was always like one of those things you had to be really like good at it, because if you kick the ball all the way down to the end of the field and it still rolled out of bounds before anybody touched it, or if it goes up there, right? It goes up to but now everybody's starting at that line. You got 5 yards in between the guys, so you'll have guys doing like the swim move to try to get through people and stuff to get to the tackle. But the safe zone, or like the dead zone, the gap in between, you don't want to hit that. If you hit that, then you'd rather the ball almost be returned. If it rolls out of bounds, it goes to the 20, but they're not going to let it roll out of the bounds, roll into the end zone. You can't fair catch it.
No more fair catch. Is that just on kickoffs? It's not on punts, though, right? Just on kickoffs?
I believe this only impacts kickoff.
Okay. Because I mean, if they said no fair catch on punt, that's a whole new issue, right? But I mean, either way, it's like this is to keep the high speed collisions from happening, but it's going to have an effect where, like, a lot of us, like, I had a knee jerk reaction. I'm like, why even get a kick returner if this is the new rule, But then, after looking at the rule, it depends on who you have back there. You get a guy that can break a tackle or two back there, the other team's going to be in trouble. So this is going to make like a lot of special teamers, they're going to start going after the guys with the high end speed, and the not the team that's returning, but the team that's defending. They're going to put those guys out there just in case that guy breaks the tackle and gets through. So hoping that the guys with the high end speed can run them down. This is another thing. Like I said, NFL coaches are intelligent. They make these rules. These guys will find a way to use it to their advantage. And I guarantee you our advantage on this is our guys that are yards after the catch, guys that can break tackles, right? Levi's getting his coffee, folks. Mm-hmm. That's what's going on.
Well, we appreciate everybody for coming. Yeah, the rules have definitely changed. It's going to definitely be different, and hopefully we'll see the stats, the stats, the statistics, the data that shows that the concussions and all that is going down. But see, the whole thing though, too, David, is CTE and everything isn't always detectable right away, and it takes sometimes years to be determined, and sometimes again, it's not even because you played football; it's just genetics. So to take the concussions away and eliminate, these players from major injuries, okay, but it sounds like you're just really trying to save the owners from having to pay out a bunch of money for player injuries, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I would make this new kickoff rule backfire on Roger Goodell if I was him. I was talking to this a little bit at Terradome last night. I saw that new kickoff rule, right? And my immediate brain says, I bet you I can make the owners eat this fucking change. So first thing is this. Now that the way it's designed, it's essentially a big run play, right? So like I told Terradome, well, what happens? Because now you don't need guys that can, go back 20 yards and then go. You don't need as much movement on these blockers as you used to need. So let's say I'm playing the 49ers. We line up for a kickoff. All of a sudden, though, you walk out your normal special teams, all the backups that you use to fill out special teams. I walk out all my extra defensive linemen and offensive linemen who now only have maybe 10-yard gap between them and the blocker.
Yep.
It's much easier for those 300-pounders now to get a hand on someone, and there's not as much open field or speed to get around them. So, like I was telling Terradome, my only plan with that is I'm going to sit there and start knocking your fucking people out of the way, because in that essence, I don't need a lot of speed. I only need one guy with speed. And if my 300-pounders knock your 160-pounders out of the way and open a lane and there's no one for the next 75 yards, it's easy win. And then, of course, we're going to see the concussion rate go back up. Because, they're doing this because they want kicks returned, but they want their concussion rate to stay down. But I would backfire this on them. I'd see the new kickoff as a giant run play. Like, so let's say this. Let's say I kick off, I return left. I pull 3 people from the far right side of the field in a guard pulling motion coming to the left side. The ability of those people to run around the outside, bend, and go get to the kick returner is highly unlikely. And of course, what do you teach in special teams? Don't get out of your lane. If they break their lane, they might have just opened up a huge, huge hole. And like I told Terradome, first thing I'm doing is I'm pulling that pull motion, and then the guy on my far left where I'm returning to, I'm pulling him back as a potential jet sweep reverse. Because again, if those 3 guys that came with my pulling guys do not, stay in their lanes, the reverse is gone every time. Because there's no way to recover in that area. I would play mind games. I'm just trying to get them to blow a timeout when I walk out on my 300-pounders. It's almost like we talked about, Bryant, a surprise onside kick. And I'm interested
Bring
to
up
see
a Sentinel's comment there, because this is also something that's going on.
Take it down.
The last one he did. And, what's the point of no return for you, where the rule changes affect the game to the point where this isn't the football you fell in love with, because it's beginning to get to that point for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true, though, like hip drop tackles. Back in the day when I was watching, those quarterbacks would get mauled, and they could be hit low. The helmet to helmet was still illegal back then, right? That's something that hasn't changed. It's not new to the game. But the spearing with your helmet back then, you were allowed to tackle guys that way. It's just tackling people, right? But and it does. It gets to the point where it's like, what are you guys trying to do here? And it's kind of obvious to me. They're trying to make the average points per game go up. So more people will watch. So maybe it will, another Sentinel comment, become more worldwide. You're on fire this morning, Sentinel.
So this is going to be fun. This is going to be a lot of fun, because just like Levi said, you could kind of go out there strategically and make it look like you got a brick wall going out there, right? Some people disagree that there won't be swim moves. Some people believe that there will be specialized players that are going to be drafted specifically for that. So they're gonna, what would you do? You go and put your defensive ends out there, right, to go and tackle. If the ball gets kicked a certain way, there's a good chance that there's not even going to be a return at all. If the return does happen, you got a bunch of defensive ends out there, or defensive tackles that know how to get to a quarterback. All they have to do is run after a Derrick Henry running out in full force. Okay, I mean, I don't know. I think that could be a way of preventing a big touchdown. I think that'd probably be your only way to prevent somebody like a Derrick Henry, or maybe a George Kittle in his prime. I don't know if he still got that in him, where he was carrying the Saints on his back. We kind of remember that game, right? 49ers a legendary game, right? Shout out to TJ. He always says that legendary word, but it's great because we are a legendary team. But you guys are getting what I'm saying. It's going to be interesting. And this is just like what Ty said as well. This is the way that the NFL is going to try to fix the kickoff. Because what they've done to the kickoff already is are you going to take it away and then eliminate the whole play altogether? And then what? Every game you start out at the 20, or every game you start out at the 25? I mean, okay, so then what next? Punts? Are you going to take away the punt? And then everybody just, are we going
You
to
must
5
throw a
overtimes?
Hail Mary, and the defense is required to intercept the ball. We're getting rid of punts. Like, for real, though. It's
No more punts. It's like it's two-hand touched NFL. It's going to be what is it? NTHTFL or two-hand touch, because flag football is too dangerous. You got to grab at things.
This is something I mentioned to Terradom last night too. I think we're going to see concussions go back up because you can't hip drop. So if you wrap on someone, you can still wrap them and hold them, but you're not going to get the tackle. So we're going to see a lot more people holding people for other people to hit, which of course you can't dive low at the knees because your player's already kind of holding there. You don't want to hip drop. They're going to start blowing them up top. I think we're going to see concussions rise because the hip drop tackle was banned. And I don't know, that kickoff, man. Like, so if I'm not mistaken, if it is a touchback still, it comes out to the 35 now.
Yes.
I think you're going to see so many teams still just kick that motherfucker through the back of the end zone. Like, why would you change your strategy? I mean, yes, they're going to get an extra 10 yards, but the potential is just one of those ones. Why do I train my special teams for return duties when I just know I can blow it through the back of the end zone? The Ravens run to that line as like a personal bet and race among the players. They literally bet who's going to be the first line, like a race to the end zone. And that's what the Ravens players do on special teams.
So what I think what's happening here is with the whole hip drop, the whole tackle, I think what's happening this season, you're going to see for the first couple weeks, they're not going to know how to call it, and they don't want to call it in the game, and they're going to send out the fines after the week. So we're going to see this happen come around maybe week 5, 6, where players start playing different because they don't want their pockets to be affected. And that's when the scoring is going to start going up, and they're going to justify it by saying that, oh, well, that's when all the teams are heating up because of the preseason games and them being shorter and the players not getting the same amount of practice time. So now you look at, okay, that's justifying it, right? Because all the teams are gelling, but it's not going to be that. The tackling is going to be worse. If you start doing the concussions, the players are going to get ejected from the game immediately, and everybody's going to see that's the bad guy. Where when the fines happen, people can mask it. And some of the fans that are regular fans and not super fans who don't read in all the articles and hear, oh, this guy just lost this much money because of so and such. All that stuff's not really necessary when you sit down on Sunday to watch the game because you're just rooting for a good game. You got your bag of chips and your soda and your family, whatnot, right? But for the super fans, we read all that. So we're like, oh wow, this guy got this guy, and then it starts making sense why these players are going to start allowing the tackles to not happen. And then this is what I think is going to happen: is the defenses are going to come together, the league together, the players will come together and say, we can't play this way. So obviously, this year's points are going to be inflated higher than any other year, I believe, and they'll correct it next year. But this is my thoughts, guys. So I hope I'm wrong, but I think because they're not going to want to see the concussions happen. Players are all kind of agreeing, don't do headshots and stuff. We've seen the Antonio Brown thing get blown out of proportion, and we've seen a lot of craziness with that. So the hip drop going away, they're going to say, what can we do? That's what I think is going to happen is at the end of the season, you're going to have tight ends going for 1,500 yards plus, and the wide receivers are going to be going crazy, and really offense is just going to explode this year. How can you stop it? How can you stop? The only way you're going to stop it is an interception or a fumble. So that's the only way. So you're not going to see tackles anymore. You're going to see the balls being stripped, and then really you're not going to be able to hit the quarterback much longer either, because where can you hit a quarterback at this point? If he's an elite quarterback, and it's not elite by his play, it's elite by his contract. So if he was drafted at a certain round and he gets hit a certain way, then you say, okay, throw the flag, right?
Shit, it ain't even that. It ain't even about the contract. It ain't even about that. It's about who the NFL views as their money makers. I think I said it in the comments the other night. Infamous video. Tom Brady got touched. Flag. Cam Newton gets taken out the knees and suplexed. And when he gets up and complains to the ref literally looked at him and said, you don't get those types of calls. Even though it was one of the most egregious roughing the passers I've seen in my entire career. And that's the shit where, again, everyone's like, shit, this is rigged. Because you literally had a ref that was caught on a hot mic saying that he enforces the rule differently for two different quarterbacks purely because some unknown reason to us that does not seem rational, So, and with that, the hit drop tackle, I think we're not going to see it early. I think we are going to see it at the most egregious, worst, game-changing, Fail Mary replacement ref style, going to absolutely impact and change a game's outcome. And I think we're going to see then, of course, the fans absolutely furious. Another thing that's I think this hip drop tackle is going to do is the NFL, of course, because we've been moving towards points. I think it's going to move that way, of course, more. But so the NFL started getting away from regular cornerbacks. They started going with these guys. Emmanuel Forbes, when he was drafted to the Commanders out of Mississippi State, was 165 pounds. There is a bare minimum weight to play in the NFL, because if 320-pound Haloti Ngata crushes a 150-pound former track runner, he will die. So Emmanuel Forbes barely met the weight requirement. And of course, what was the main issue with that? His tackling. I think we maybe over these next few years, we might see the NFL finally moving away from these absolutely tiny corners that can only cover, because now you have to tackle. If you try to hit drop, which is what they teach the smaller guys, especially corners, to do, against a Mark Andrews, who's 260 plus 6'5", you're just not going to be able to play the same in the NFL. And then, of course, when the corners get bigger, it's going to be harder. You're going to see more players go back to wide receiver, less players coming out in the draft as corners and safeties and defensive backs. And I think we're going to see a serious dip in quality in the next 10 years, potentially, in defensive back players. So make sure you lock your guy up long term.
And truly in all positions, because what other positions will players want to go, kids want to go and play? Yep. How many people are going to be knocking on the door and saying, I want to play, running back. I want to play, right guard. They're not going to do that anymore. Maybe the offensive line could actually take a step up. But if they start really protecting the quarterbacks, who really wants to be a defensive lineman? Who wants to be a defensive?
I know all the holding would piss me off as a defensive lineman. They're like, oh, there's holding on every play. Well, can we not? Because affects my numbers.
Can we figure something out? Because at this point, because it's been made a couple of points on a couple of shows recently. You know, Carson Palmer's knee got taken out, nothing happened. Tom Brady's knee gets taken out, everybody's like, the world stopped. The whole world stopped. It was like, let's write the rule right now and say this is never going to happen again. And I believe, if I'm correct, the Patriots still had a decent season that year. I think they had their I'm trying to think of their quarterback, and he went to the Chiefs, if I'm right. But
Matt Castle.
thank you. They still are decent. So I mean, but they lost Tom Brady that year, right? And I don't know, guys. It's just you imagine if Steve Young would have played, and he didn't get hurt. But that's now they're trying to protect these players because of their contracts. So here's a thought: would they be protecting these players if their salaries aren't as exploded or overpaid as they are currently?
I mean,
they're not protecting police officers like this. They're not protecting the paramedics like this. They're not protecting firefighters like this, or regular construction workers, or just and why? Because it's okay. It's okay.
The better your union,
somebody something, then everybody's like, oh well, we need to put insurance on this guy. If you're driving around a Honda, nobody cares, right? But if you drive around a Maserati, right, then everybody's like, oh, stay back, right? The same thing, like you drive a Mercedes, people are like, oh, stay back, don't hit it. They got money. But if you drive a Chevy, people are like, oh, it's just a Chevy, right? It's a
we got a serious problem. I live in the rich part of Florida, and if you were driving a nice car, them cops will not touch you, bro. You can be doing 100, 30 over the speed limit, don't matter. But you driving the cheaper car in the nicer area, oh shit, they might just pull you over for that.
What are you doing? You don't belong here, right? It's so it's selective perspective, and it's not right. But it goes back to being about your price and the value of these players. As long as they keep on letting the quarterbacks, dictate how much the NFL salary cap's going up, and for what? Now they're trying to.
If I had to play a single devil's advocate point, now I still think they're paid a little too much, but hear me out on this. The NFL, the players, there's what, technically 52 players a roster, 30 teams. That's, whatever. Out of that amount of people, the talent, like athleticism it takes to actually make it to the NFL is only the top 1% or 2% of college players even. Like, a lot of people don't realize how elite these athletes are. They are like 1 in 10,000, especially like the actual star players. So in essence of value of yourself, know your value. I mean, just like anyone else. But of course, we don't see MMA fighters getting paid as much. We don't see Olympians getting paid as much. Things where they are of a similar tool set, I guess I could say, and of course, they're not getting paid a $100 million max value, $80 million guaranteed contract. I think, yeah,
Levi, you might be able to answer this question for me, okay? Because I'm not positive for this, and I'm sure certain, and we'll get to that. But when you're a mechanic, or you're an electrician or a plumber, you get paid so much for your knowledge. But when you have your tools, you can go to and you can say, I have tools, so I am asking for a higher wage, right? So when you're a doctor, I know there's certain doctors probably will have like certain things that they keep, right? But like, you're a surgeon, right? How many doctors are really walking in there with like, I need my scalpel, right? That's the one I operate on everybody with, right? So you get what I'm saying? It's like
they do keep with one item, only one though. I'll show it to you because I still have mine. Every doctor, this is theirs, 1,000%, and I guarantee you, if they're a real doctor, they've spent over $1,000 on this. Mine was only like $200-$300. But yeah, that's about the only thing. I feel you on that. They don't have to,
But you know what I'm saying? It's like they're not getting paid for their equipment, they're getting paid for their knowledge. So in that case, it's almost a little bit different because a mechanic, or a contractor can't do certain work without that tool.
Exactly.
Right? But the doctors aren't expected to necessarily have that. So with a quarterback, you're like, okay, you have the capabilities to go out and perform this way. So we're paying you for what you could potentially do. So now they're throwing the insurance on these players because they don't want to see their investment. But what happens when these players turn out to be a bust, and bust isn't that player word we want to say, but at that point, then they're saying, okay, well, how do we reclaim this money because you didn't play any games for us? And that's where we have like a situation where
we had. That's why we had to get the rookie max contract in the last NFL CBA agreement, because Sam Bradford was making more money than Tom Brady, and he hadn't even played an NFL game when he came into the league. And that's a crazy thing. A lot of people forget about that. Our generation of football fans watched happen. We watched that craziness come to an end, and that began a whole new game plan to try to get to the Super Bowl on the rookie quarterback deal, basically, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, like the quarterbacks.
Well, we're having this situation now with players who are potentially great when they're on the field, but when they're hurt, now we have again the players are being asked by the owners or the team to take pay cuts after they've been agreed on. Like, I will work for this long, for this potential dream, this potential production. But when I don't play, you should still pay, right? Because I played and I got hurt. Well, where's but that's all supposed to be down in the contracts. That's all supposed to be players, unions. They're supposed to take care of that all, right? I just think, again, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not trying to think be a communist, or I like how you can go to one state and make so much money, or go to a different company and make different. This, I love that, right? But I just think that they should have some kind of cap on the NFL. If you're a right tackle, you should be paid what a right tackle is paid for. If you're a quarterback, you should be paid what a quarterback's paid for. If the players' values are different, I don't think that's even fair either, because you need a really good right tackle. You need a really good left tackle, right? And somebody who's a kid should want to potentially grow up to be that player, right? They shouldn't say, I don't want to be a long snapper because they don't make any money. I don't want to be a kicker, right? Well, why not? Kickers should be able to make, and they do. They make good money, right? If they're the best, right? But that's the whole thing. If there's these different players and they're all over the world and they're making different amounts of money, then you have to have this extremely high price insurance on them so you get that money back, right? They didn't have that back in the 50s. They didn't have that in the 60s because these guys were getting paid basic, right?
Yep. You can insure anything, but money makes the world go round. What's funny is you're mentioning like all the pay and stuff like that. One thing that I have never personally understood, and I'm sorry, David, we haven't let you jump in here a while.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I had to step away from that anyway.
I have always been about performance pay. Hey, just pay on how they perform that season. I love contracts like Clowney's last contract. He was only getting paid like $2 million base salary. However, he had sack incentives, tackle incentives, game incentives, all this stuff. Hey, man, you play a full, 16 game season, break like 5 sacks, then 10 sacks. Hey, you break 5 sacks, you got another $2 million. Hey, you break 10 sacks, hey, here's another $1 million. And that's how his contract was. Now, I understand from the player's perspective that they want guaranteed money because it is a dangerous game they are playing, yada, yada, yada. And that, they might play great one year, but they get hurt and it derails their entire career. While I understand that, it's like a freak accident thing. You're asking NFL owners, which, they're billionaires, they don't need any help, but you're still asking a business company to guarantee your pay as a salaried employee, despite your performance. So even if you don't get hurt, Albert Haynesworth went to Conway High School, not too far from where I went. I watched Albert Haynesworth sign that $100,000, the biggest contract at that point in defensive line history with, at that point, the Redskins. And then he literally is the reason why teams are so hesitant to hand out money, because it wasn't injuries. It wasn't coaching scheme. It was 100%. He got paid. He got his guaranteed money. He said, I'm good, bro. Y'all gonna cut me anyway, and then I'm just gonna go sign another deal and get at that point, he doesn't lose money. The only person that loses money is the team, so I don't know. Maybe, but it's just I'm stuck in the middle on it. You know what I mean? Because I think it's sometimes garbage, but at the same time, I understand, you want to get your bag and get paid, and have some security in your life. But you had to go to college to go to the NFL first. So, technically you should have had a backup plan all along in some shape, degree, or form. I would like to see it all change, but I doubt we do. By the way, collective bargaining agreement doesn't expire till 2030. So we're not going to see any changes for another 6 years.
Oh man.
It's cool. It's neat, because we're at this point with technology and the way streaming services is working but I think things are going to explode before they come back together, because I think they really tried a couple years ago with the NFL Network and trying to stream all the regular games on, and they almost tried to stream them all at the same time when they're on these other channels. They're like, hey, we're the NFL Network, or they'd rebroadcast them right away, right afterwards. But there wasn't any other shows. They didn't have anything else. Now there's a lot of different shows. A lot of different people are talking about it. They've made it really easy for people to start talking like this. I do see it really getting really expensive for owners, and the owners making money because of all this television and the way streaming services are paying. I believe this year we're going to have a Wednesday Christmas game, if I'm correct.
2 games on Christmas. They doubled down on it because it was such a fucking crusher this last year.
But Wednesday, right? I mean, I guess, right? But
hey, so when do all 4 of those teams play their games? Are they all going to have a bye week right before it? I mean, that's kind of, you're giving them 2 days rest? That's ridiculous. I'm not a fan of the Thursday night games, folks, if no one knew.
Yeah.
Because these guys, they're literally getting in car wrecks during the game. They're smashing into each other. They're beating themselves up. They need the week to heal before the next game, before the next car wreck, the next beat up. And at, those Thursday night games, they're giving them 3 days?
Yeah.
And then
basically.
right back to it. It's.
And sometimes their previous
enough.
game was already a travel game and they're already across the country. So they literally go, well, there's no point in going home, man. If take a day to fly home.
Would you guys be for a realignment of the whole entire league?
Oh man. Are you talking about divisions?
Entire league, NFC and AFC realignment.
Ooh.
I am. I would be. I look at it. There's been a couple different breakdowns of it. They would have a Pacific Coast League. Basically, there's going to be an opportunity where the Ravens and the Commanders or the Washington teams together. I don't understand why the teams that are closest. Well, I understand it because I know how the league was formed. But looking at it from a new person just saying, hey, these teams are really close together. Why wouldn't they be ideally in a league? I mean, there's a chance where you could have Green Bay, Chicago, the Vikings, and I want to say the Chiefs would all be a division.
Hey, I see your point, Bryant. The NFC East and the Dallas Cowboys, they're in the Southwest. What are they doing in the NFC East?
The Dolphins being in the Bills and Patriots division?
Yeah. I mean, you could have the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Bucks, the Jaguars, the Falcons, all those teams right there. Boom, a league right there, the South League.
And I personally think like putting Jacksonville, Tampa, and Miami all in a division together would make an inter-Florida rivalry like we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Like people would, I feel like, just have more fun with it in a certain sense. But of course, you got to then worry about certain, rivalry games disappearing supposedly.
Well, you could still potentially have those like once a year, if they, strategically, scheme them the right way. They want to have another game. They want to go to 18 games. So if they give them 2 bye weeks, they could potentially do this, add a couple more guys on the roster. And then, like maybe, I like seeing preseason games, add a couple preseason games so these guys can have actual practice against other teams, not these scrimmages that we don't get to see. Let the fans actually get to see something that, it might not count, but it counts for some people because they actually get to go to the game and, it's that atmosphere and stuff. So I would like it.
Well, Brian, I see your point, like keep the teams from traveling so much, right? So many miles.
Yeah.
And like like Battle for Florida, that was said in the chat. The chat's on fire right now, by the way. and that would actually be
Battle of Texas
to see Jacksonville, Miami, and Tampa in the same division.
Houston and Dallas, I'm sorry.
You could have I would have to look at the map again, but this just is throwing it out there. You could have the Bills, the Patriots, the Jets, and the Giants all in the same division right there. That could be like the Battle of New York or something. I mean, it's just
Baltimore's always had the Battle of the Beltway in preseason with Washington Commanders because literally they're like 50 minutes down the road from Baltimore's facility. Like.
I like the idea. I really do. You could really truly do a whole lot right there. The Niners could potentially be playing the Raiders in regular season every year. That would make a lot of people in this area, excited to see that game. Again, people got to be, craziness happens at any point in life. If something's gonna happen, hope it doesn't happen, right? And you pray for it not to happen. But that's when you have better security and you pay, I guess, a little bit more money. So people are, they're, taking care of people and actually patting them down the right way and making sure guns aren't coming in and knives and people aren't getting too drunk in the parking lot. And, it's not just drunk people either. People who
terrifying. Like,
that's horrible. Even just sitting there in the stadium. You guys remember that last year? I believe the Patriot fan who got brutally attacked, and that's not right. He perished, and to lose your cool and attack somebody is not acceptable.
I watched a fight go down at Hard Rock Stadium last time I went. Some Ravens fan beside me and Dolphins fans in front of me, and it ended up in a brawl basically. Thankfully, we didn't get involved, but I'll say this: the Ravens fans had it coming. I'll be 100% honest. It was the Ravens fans' fault. Yeah, honestly, what you were just talking about too, the whole patting down thing. Oh, my girlfriend, she took the kid to the fair the other day, and they got like all the sheriffs and they're doing pat downs and supposed to be clear purse policy. So my girlfriend, being the person that she is, already had her clear purse, with making sure everything's right. She gets there, they're barely patting down people, and like every woman, no woman has clear purses, and they're just like, put your purse on the thing, not going through the purses or anything. Like, we actually live beside the Red Sox training facility, like our spring training area down here, and the Minnesota Twins. They're both like within 5 minutes of me each way. They do their security right. But, man, when I see stuff like that happening at the fair, as someone that worked in security, I'm like, man, this is the type of shit where, again, you see Florida Fair, like, especially here in Florida.
Well, guys, we appreciate everybody for coming. This is always a lot of fun. I do like to keep the show to about an hour. Sometimes we can go over longer, but, sometimes, that cup of coffee, when you run out, it's time to go refill. We do appreciate y'all. Guys, we had a lot of fun last night. If you didn't see the show, go check it out. We had Miss Gina on, and it's always awesome to have different people on. If you're ever interested in coming on for an interview, let us know. Levi, thank you for coming on today, talking with us about new special teams rules and stuff. And we'll be looking forward to talking with you again here soon. Guys, check out Levi's channel. It's just like that, Darwin's Raven. He does a lot of great stuff. He does, and you just got to check it out. Jump in his chat. He does a lot of neat stuff that's interactive in the chat as well. So if like sometimes I don't get to the chat as fast as I can, and I really do appreciate y'all for sticking around and listening. But Levi's got some. You just got to go check it out to see what I'm talking about. I'm gonna save a surprise for you there. And then David, I believe David, you're gonna be doing something tonight. If you'd like to go and let everybody know, I will definitely be there.
It's mock draft episode 5, and we are straight up going war room style tonight. It's not going to be everyone gets to be a GM for a draft. We're all going to have a say in the players that are getting picked.
All right,
And
so
we're
it's
going to
be
be looking for some potential draft steals. So,
Who's going to be the designated devil advocate in the room?
who gets to push the red button? All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. Everybody, please, check us out. If you aren't subscribed, we appreciate it. And if you got a channel, let me know so I can go check you guys out as well. Appreciate it. And, everyone have a great Saturday, and we'll see you next time.
go Niners. F all 31 other teams. Yep. Sorry, Levi.
It'd be like
But we didn't end yet. We did not end.